you are making a decision to change and grow, it's not fair for you to hold people to that same standard of what you're doing. Welcome to the Third Quarter Podcast. I'm your host, Ace, and you know I am blessed by the best, but guess what? Even better than that, so are you, and you are not here by accident, my friend. Nope, you are exactly where you are supposed to be. You may have thought that you just clicked on this just to see what it was going to be like, but I'm telling you, this is a divine assignment. You are supposed to be here because this is your third quarter. What is the third quarter? Well, the third quarter is when you take what you've learned in the past. You don't dwell on it. You don't sit on it. You don't walk in it. You assess what happened in the past. You apply what didn't go right, and you apply it in the third quarter. You've been in halftime long enough. It's time for you to get in the game. So this is the Third Quarter Podcast where we learn, we grow, we attack, and we reclaim. So if that's you, you're definitely not here by accident. So welcome to the Third Quarter Podcast. I'm so happy to have you. And if you've been listening for a while, thank you. And if you're new, welcome. And I have a really hot topic, kind of like a part two, but it's about boundaries, but not just about boundaries. It's about setting boundaries and how to set them while also welcoming others along your journey, okay? How to be more gracious, how to be more understanding to the people that you love and the people that love you as they get used to this newer version of you. And before we get into that, I want to do something a little bit different today that I'm going to be doing more often. And that is I want to read a review of the week. You guys write a lot of reviews. I encourage you to write reviews. It really helps us out. And it means a lot to us that you would take time out of your day to do that. But also, this is me showing you that I see you, I'm grateful for you, and I appreciate you. So I'm going to start reading reviews of the week. And today's review comes from RJMJ Jr. and a bunch of numbers after that, okay? I hope that's not your social security. But RJ says, amazing! 5 stars. This is one of the best decisions Ace has ever made by creating a podcast. Thank you so much. Ace has so much to give us, and I guarantee you will not be disappointed. RJ, thank you so much for the review. And if you haven't left a review or rate us 5 stars yet, I welcome you to do so. And maybe your review will be read on a podcast in the future. Now, let's get into the episode. How to set boundaries while also giving your friends, your family, the people that you love, grace to get used to this newer version of yourself. And I'm going to say this. And if you're listening to this, personal development, growth, elevation is probably something that you really care about, okay? I'm going to tell you one of the hardest things for me to do when I was making this decision to grow and to change parts of my life that I felt were holding me back, or I just wanted to challenge myself and to step into my potential. One of the worst things that you can do, all right, I'm trying to help you out here, is when you make the decision to grow, when you're making the decision to make some changes and cut some things out and put some stuff in and just to really elevate your life. One of the worst things you can do is have the expectation that other people are making the same decision as you. You are making an individual decision for you. It's not about anybody else. It's not anyone else's responsibility to get on the train. It's not anyone else's duty to lay out the red carpet for you. This is your decision and your decision alone. And one of the things that we do is that we're so hype, we're so eager, we're so excited to make these adjustments that we want other people to do the same thing, when in reality, no, it's you. You're the one that's making the change. And we can't expect other people to do the same thing that we're doing because maybe they're not in the right season for that. Maybe They're still going through and filtering things out for them to get to that point. Or maybe by them witnessing what you're doing on your own accord will encourage them and inspire them to make those changes themselves in whatever areas they need. But the point that I'm making is just because you are making a decision to change and grow, it's not fair for you to hold people to that same standard of what you're doing. Because sometimes what we do, and I know I've done it to people that I love and care for, and if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for that. But sometimes because we're making changes, right? Let's say, for example, you're making a change in your diet and you're changing how you eat, and you're drinking more water, you're cutting out fried foods, and you're not eating the processed stuff. Like, you're really changing your nutritional habits. And now you're going out with your friends and your family, and you're ordering food, and you're sticking to what you do, and you're looking at everyone else's plate, and now you playing food police. You like, woo, woo, woo. What's that in your plate, big dog? We're not doing that. We cutting that out. We doing this. We doing that. And what you're doing is that you're forcing your ideology onto others, even if the advice that you have and the points that you're making are true and can help them. But you don't want to force your beliefs. You don't want to force your routines. You don't want to force what you're doing to someone else. The only thing that you can do is control what you do. Let your actions on your behalf influence others to change their decisions. Now, if they ask you, why are you eating this way? If they're asking you about it, then you let them in. But what we do sometimes is we expect people to make dietary changes or cut out alcohol or to take cold plunges or to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because you are, and you expect people to get on that train. And when they don't do it, what do? They're toxic. They don't want it as bad as me. They're holding me back. And it's like, wait a second, pump the earth. Just because you're making a decision to do some things, it doesn't mean that the people that aren't on that level right now or aren't on that train that you're on, it doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they don't support you. And it doesn't mean that they're toxic. Like, we got to get that out of our head. And I feel like we live in this culture right now where if you don't agree with what I'm doing, then you're not for me. And that's not fair. It's like, if we go back to the 90s for a second, if you could take a trip with me back to the 90s when everything made sense, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was on TV, Jordan was playing for the Bulls, Oprah Winfrey was on TV, movies were box office, music was cool. The 90s was it, right? There was no cell phones, really. You had a house phone or you had a pager, okay? Let's say you're in your 20s, and you've had the same house phone number your whole life, 20, 25 years. And all your friends know it. Your best friends know your number by heart. They can call you whenever, wherever, because they know your number by heart. And all of a sudden, you decide to change your number. Now, my number is changed. I wanted to change. Cool. That's great. Well within your right. But don't you think it's going to take a while for people to remember your new number? And this is before cell phones. You couldn't just program a number. You had to either memorize it or it had to be written down in one of those phone books, those address books, them joints we used to put on the refrigerator. Write those numbers down in case of emergency. Call these numbers. You know what I'm talking about. And just because they don't memorize your new number, that doesn't mean they don't love you. I'm sure they're going to call the old number a bunch of times because that's what they're used to. And they're going to be, I forgot, they changed the number. Okay, where's that paper? Just because they misplaced the paper with your new number, it doesn't mean they don't love you, right? It means that it's taking time for them to get used to this new change. And it's the same thing when you're making changes right now. You have to allow people time and give them grace to get reacclimated or acclimated to this new version of you. And just like I said in the previous pod before, Setting boundaries is really about you not getting in the way of you. It's not to control what other people do, because you can't do that. You can influence it, but you can't control it. And so when you're having these new boundaries in place, when you're having these new standards in your life, you have to give people time to get used to this. To expect people to just get with it and to just get on board because you're on board for you, that's not fair. And to be honest, you cannot say, well, if you love me, you will do this. When I would respond and say, well, if you love me, you would give me time. And we see this sometimes, and I'm going to be honest with you, as a believer, I would see this in the church. You're making a change to give your life to Christ and to go to church. And now you're deciding to make changes and to live life a certain way. And now you're looking at people differently. It's like, dog, you was just in the streets with me. Like, what is we talking about? You know what I'm saying? You was just at the club on Saturday. Relax. It's okay for you to make changes and hold yourself to a different standard. But you also have to give people that have been in your corner and people that love you a chance to get used to this newer version of you. Not forcing it on them, but giving them time and grace. Okay? So I want to give you a few things to do to help ease the people that you love into this newer lifestyle that you have. Okay? So number one, I kind of mentioned it already. You have to give people grace. You have to give people time to get used to this newer version of you. And on top of that, what I would recommend is the people that you really care about. Okay? I'm not talking about your coworkers and associates, but like your true friends, your significant other, and your family. Okay? I would talk to them together or, set certain people aside and talk to them one-on-one and express to them what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what you would want from them during this time, and also what you are going to allow for them to get used to what you are going to do. Does that make sense? You don't want to just make changes and then just like all of a sudden just break the news. Let people know that this is what's going on. Here's why you were making the change, right? And here's what to expect from me moving forward. And also reassure them, I know these changes are sudden, and I know some of these changes may seem significant, but the reason why I'm talking with you right now is because I value you so much that I want to let you know and include you in this journey, but also to let you know I'm going to give you grace and I'm going to give you time to get used to this. And if you have any questions, if there's anything that I can do better to help make this a better transition for you too, let me know. Boom. That right there eases so much tension. It gives them permission, right, to make mistakes and to cross a boundary, right? But it also maybe inspires them to want to join you on this journey. Because sometimes you got to understand, when you might be the one in the family that people are looking at, that once he does it or once she does it, I know I can. So when you're telling people what you're doing and why you're doing it, you could spark something on the inside of them that makes them want to, I want to make some changes too. And now you got an accountability partner. But you don't want to just make a change and say, get with it or get lost. Like, that's whack. Don't do that. Okay? Give them grace and space to get used to this. But also what you're doing that's really cool is that you're giving them time to see if this is a friendship, right, that in this particular season of their life that they can be a part of, right? So that's why you want to give them space, because just like you're making a change and they're in your life, they also have their own life and you're a part of that. So you're also giving them the space and the grace to see if right now this is a season where it's for them, right? So the first thing I would recommend is to give them grace and understanding that, hey, here are changes that I'm making, and I'm telling you this because I want you in my life. But I also know that some things are going to be different. And I'm just giving you a heads up, and I'm giving you space and grace to adjust if this is something that you want to adjust to. Okay? The second thing is you want to focus on the boundary around you. Okay? So let's say, for an example, you want to go to bed at 9:00, and one of your boundaries is, hey, Monday through Friday, I'm going to bed at 9:00. Okay? I'm not going to answer the phone. I'm not going to go out after 9. Okay? That's what I'm doing now. And if this is something that you've been doing previously when you've been going out after 9:00 and you've been staying out late, it's going to take a minute for people to get used to this new you. So instead of trying to go to bed at 9 and then getting a text message and getting a call from someone that you told that you're going to bed at 9 and getting pissed, how about you set the boundary for yourself and just shut your phone off at 9? That way, you don't have to worry about someone crossing a boundary because you set the boundary for yourself. You got in front of it. You made the decision. And instead of waiting and instead of having space for someone to cross the boundary, they just can't reach you. You just shut the phone off. And maybe you have a second phone, or maybe you have another way that, you have like an emergency contact where, like, when you're needed for something, like it's an emergency, people know how to reach you, and you give that number or you give that, that outlet to a certain group of people that can reach you when something really goes wrong. Boom. But by and large, everybody else, you shut your phone off. So whether you got to get an alarm clock or you got an Alexa or like whatever the case is, you're putting the boundary in you. So you're taking control of you going to bed at 9 by you turning your phone off. Okay? So one way you can help people getting used to this new you is by you being more firm on the boundary you have with you instead of trying to control how people are interacting with you. Okay? That's the second thing. The last thing I will say is this. I need you to check your ego at the door. I need you to look in the mirror, and I need you to check your ego, okay? Because remember this, you are going to mess up too. You are not going to be perfect. You are not going to be flawless in this transition, in this evolution of you. You are going to fall short. You are going to make mistakes. So it's not fair for you to get upset when someone crosses a boundary, if you are also going to cross boundaries with yourself. This is why grace is so important. You cannot hold people to a standard that you are unwilling to hold yourself to. This is what made everybody pissed at Michael Jordan. But the real ones that understood, the people like me, the people like Kobe, the winners, the people that understood why he was so hard on his teammates, was because he was not going to tell them to do something that he wasn't already doing or willing to do himself. He's not going to hold his teammates to a standard that he does not already hold himself to. And the people that didn't operate like that were pissed. And the people that operated like that won 6 championships. Okay? So you cannot hold your friends, your family, your partner to a standard, but then let yourself off the hook. So checking your ego at the door and understanding that even though, yes, you have boundaries and you have a new way that you're trying to do life, you are still going to fall short of you. So by you saying, hey, here's my standards, here's my boundaries, here's where I'm going, I also have to give myself grace. Because when you understand grace, right, it's not just you having grace for other people, you have to have grace for you. Because you're going to fall short of the mark every single day at some point doing something. It may not be your routine, right? But you're going to fall short with something. You're not perfect. So learning to have grace and checking your ego at the door is also going to give you more strength more encouragement, more understanding for your friends, your family, and significant others that are also going to mess up with the boundaries that you have in place for you. But the bottom line in this entire episode is to understand that everybody's not toxic. Everybody is not out to get you. Everybody's not bad for you. Oftentimes, it's what you're allowing yourself to do, which makes other people treat you the way that you treat yourself. And when you change your expectation for you, and you hold yourself to a certain standard, and you give yourself grace, you're going to be able to extend that grace to others. And even though you're making the decision to grow, you're not making people feel like an outsider, and you're not making yourself seem like you're holier than thou. Now, I will say this in conclusion. There may be a case where you do all of this and someone's still not going to want to respect it. Even when you've given them grace, you've given them time, you've given them understanding, they're still going to do what they want to do. Now, that is when that's an indicator when that's probably someone you need to rearrange, reassess, and, make some changes when it comes to y'all's dynamic. But you can't really make that decision until you do these things, until you let them know what you're doing, give them grace, until you set firmer boundaries around yourself, and until you check your ego at the door and realize I'm gonna mess up too. And once you do all those three things, then you can really start to reassess who's really for you and who's not. And also, man, it's gonna feel so much better when you're not doing this alone. Even when people aren't doing it with you, you feel like you're not alone, right? When you're going out to eat and you're eating how you want to eat and they're not making jokes, right? That's going to feel good. When you're going out to eat and you're seeing them make changes because you're accepting that, okay, yeah, maybe you're on this journey, but I'm still on mine and I'm still learning. And when you see them making small changes, man, that's exciting. But when you're just like cutting people off because they're not on it when you're on it, that's not cool. That's not leadership. Leadership is when you make changes, you also have to accept where people are in their journey and the part that you play in their story. You might not be the one that changed them, but you can be the one that plants the seed for them to change in the future. I really hope this episode blessed you. I hope it served you. Please share this, man. I am so grateful for all of you that share, that rate it and review it. It just really, really warms my heart. And just remember, this is a podcast where we learn, where we grow, we elevate, but most importantly, we take action. It's the third quarter. It's been halftime for a while. Yep, the first half may not have went how you want it to go, but this is the third quarter. This is when we make the changes. This is when we take the action, and this is when we reclaim. I love you so much. Be safe, be blessed. And thank you for listening to the Third Quarter Podcast.